Have you ever had one of those mornings? You know the ones I'm talking about. The alarm goes off at 6:30 a.m. Maybe it's a Tuesday, which is somehow worse than a Monday because the adrenaline of the new week is worn off, but the weekend is still a lifetime away. You're lying there, staring at the ceiling, and your first thought isn't about coffee or the weather. It's this physical weight in the center of your chest, a tightness. You're thinking about that 9 a.m. meeting with the client who talks down to you, or the boss who emails you at 10 p.m. and expects a reply by 10:05. You feel trapped, not physically, the door is unlocked, but existentially. You run the math in your head before your feet even hit the floor. Rent is due in 6 days. The car insurance just went up. You're still paying off that credit card from the holidays. And you realize with this sinking, cold feeling in your gut that you are exactly one bad attitude or one restructuring email away from a total tailspin. It's suffocating, isn't it? It's that quiet desperation of knowing you are staying in a situation that makes you miserable simply because the numbers in your bank account hold you hostage. You are effectively nodding and smiling while your soul slowly leaks out of your ears just to keep the lights on. It's Karen here. I think about money a lot, probably more than is healthy for any one person, and I spend way too much time trying to figure out why money feels so different for everyone. Like, why does one person see $1,000 as a windfall to be spent and another sees it as a brick in a fortress? I'm fascinated by the behavior behind the numbers because honestly, the math of personal finance is usually pretty simple. Addition, subtraction, a fifth grader could do it. But the feelings, the psychology, that's a mess. That's where we all get stuck, and that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the difference between being rich, which is about buying stuff, and being free, which is about buying time. There is a specific type of savings, a specific chaotic energy that changes the power dynamic of your entire life. It's not a retirement fund. It's not for a rainy day. It's for the day you wake up and realize you just can't do it anymore. It's the money that allows you to look at a terrible situation, a terrible boss, or a terrible relationship and politely, or maybe not so politely, say, "I'm done." We're going to talk about the FU fund. And yeah, excuse the language, but sometimes you need a sharp word to cut through the noise. Because getting your freedom back, that's worth a little profanity. So let's back up a second. Why do we tolerate things we hate? Basically, why do we stay? If you look at history, and I do, usually when I'm procrastinating on other things, human beings have always traded labor for safety. But in the modern world, we've created this weird paradox. We have more stuff than any generation in history. We have iPhones, streaming services, DoorDash, leased SUVs with heated seats. But we have surprisingly little autonomy. We are, in a very real sense, indentured servants with better Wi-Fi. The trap is built on a lack of margin. When you live paycheck to paycheck, and listen, I know everything is expensive right now, so this isn't a judgment on inflation, but when you have zero margin, you have zero leverage. Your employer knows it, your creditors know it. You walk into work every day radiating a subtle frequency of fear. You need this. When you need something desperately, you become compliant. You become a yes person. Yes, I can work this weekend and miss my kid's soccer game. Yes, I can take on that extra project for no extra pay. Yes, it's fine that you spoke to me that way. It erodes your self-respect. Honestly, it's like walking around with a pebble in your shoe. At first, it's just annoying, but after a mile, it's agonizing. After 10 miles, you're limping. And after a few years of financial fragility, you're emotionally crippled. You stop dreaming about what you want to do with your life, and you start focusing entirely on just surviving the month. I see this all the time. People who are brilliant, creative, and capable, who are absolutely withering away in gray cubicles because they are terrified of the gap between paychecks. They aren't held back by a lack of talent. They're held back by a lack of liquidity. So what is this fund exactly? Is it an emergency fund? Well, yes and no. An emergency fund is responsible. It's what your accountant tells you to have. It's for when the transmission blows on your Honda Civic, or you need a root canal, or the roof leaks. An emergency fund is defensive. It's there to patch holes in the ship so you don't sink. The FU fund, let's call it the FYF for the sake of YouTube's algorithm and my grandmother's sensibilities, is offensive. It's a weapon. The term's been around a while. It's popped up in movies, books, pop culture. The idea is simple. It is a pile of liquid cash, not stocks you have to sell, not equity in your house that you can't eat, actual cash sitting in a high-yield savings account large enough to cover your living expenses for a significant period of time. We're talking 3 months minimum, ideally 6 to 12 months. It is the amount of money required for you to walk away from a negotiation without blinking. Think about the difference in energy. An emergency fund says, I hope nothing bad happens, and FYF says, I dare you to try me. When you have an emergency fund, you're relieved when the water heater breaks because you can pay for it. When you have an FYF, you sit in a meeting with a toxic manager who is threatening your job security, and instead of panic, you feel curiosity. You look at them and think, I could leave right now. I could literally stand up, walk out that door, go get a latte, and not work for 6 months, and I would be fine. That thought, that tiny secret thought, it changes the chemical composition of your brain. It lowers your cortisol. It stops the shaking in your hands. It gives you the ability to negotiate from a position of strength rather than desperation. This brings me to something I find really interesting about human interactions. We can smell desperation on each other. It's a pheromone. When you are desperate for money, you accept bad deals. This applies to freelancers, employees, and even relationships. I have a friend, let's call her Sarah. Sarah is an incredible graphic designer, talented, fast, great eye. But for years, she was living check to check. She had student loans, high rent in the city, the works. Because she had no cushion, every time a client came to her with a lowball offer or an unreasonable deadline, she said yes. She had to say yes. She needed the cash flow to pay rent on the first. She was exhausted, she was burnt out, and she was underpaid because her clients could sense that she wouldn't walk away. They knew they had her. Then, Sarah got a small inheritance. It wasn't millions, it was like $15,000. For her, that was about 4 months of expenses if she lived frugally. She told me later that the first time a client came to her with a rush job for exposure after she got that money, she felt this weird sensation in her throat. Usually, she'd choke out a, "Sure, I can do that." This time, she looked at the email, took a sip of coffee, and typed, "My rate for rush jobs is double my standard fee. If that doesn't work for your budget, I understand, but I won't be able to take this on." She hit send and, this is the important part, she didn't panic. She didn't sweat. She didn't care. And you know what happened? They paid it. That is the power of the FYF. It's not just about quitting, it's about raising your standards. When you are willing to walk away, the other side has to chase you. When you have savings, you stop being a commodity and start being a professional. You reclaim your agency. Okay, so I can hear you asking, Karen, this sounds great, but I'm not rich. How much money are we actually talking about? This is where people get tripped up. They think financial freedom means having $1 million. It doesn't. $1 million is a lot of money. The FYF is much smaller and much more attainable. To calculate your number, you need to know your Noodle Number. Basically, if everything went to hell tomorrow, if you lost your job and had to go into survival mode, what is the bare minimum you need to survive? I'm talking rent or mortgage, utilities, basic groceries, ramen noodles and eggs, hence the name, insurance and minimum debt payments. Cut the Netflix, cut the gym membership, cut the Friday night beers. What is the stripped down number? Let's say your normal life costs $4,000 a month, but your Noodle Number is $2,500. Your first goal for an FYF is 3 months of that Noodle Number. That's $7,500. Is $7,500 a lot of money? Yes, absolutely. If you're starting from zero, it feels like climbing Everest, but it is not $1 million. It is achievable over time. Once you hit 3 months, you push for 6. 6 months at $2,500 is $15,000. When you have $15,000 in the bank, you have bought yourself half a year of freedom. Do you know what you can do in 6 months? You can learn a new skill. You can find a job that actually likes you. You can write a book. You can recover from burnout. The math isn't about retirement. It's about bridging the gap between I have to do this and I choose to do this. Now, here is the trap. The reason most people never build this fund isn't always because they don't make enough money, though obviously low wages are a huge systemic issue. But for a lot of people in the middle class, the enemy is lifestyle creep. You know how it goes. You get a raise at work. Awesome! An extra $300 a month. What happens? Do you save it? Usually, no. You think, I worked hard, I deserve a better car, or I can finally afford that nicer apartment, or I'm going to start shopping at Whole Foods instead of Aldi. Within 3 months, that extra $300 is absorbed into your new baseline. You are making more money, but you are just as broke as you were before. You have simply upgraded your cage. This is the golden handcuffs. You build a life that is so expensive to maintain that you cannot afford to lose your high-stress job. You are locked in. You have to keep running on the treadmill just to stay in the same place. To build an FYF, you have to be willing to be weird. You have to be the person who gets a raise and changes nothing about their lifestyle. You have to look at that extra money and say, I'm not buying a new car with this. I'm buying my freedom. It requires a shift in identity. You have to value autonomy more than status. And honestly, that is really hard in a culture that screams at you to consume. We are programmed to show off our success. A brand new Tesla in the driveway looks like success. A bank statement with $20,000 in it is invisible to your neighbors. No one applauds your savings account. You don't get likes on Instagram for posting a screenshot of your emergency fund. But that invisible money is what lets you sleep at night. That invisible money is what lets you speak your truth. Here's a little secret I've learned from watching people do this. You usually don't end up having to use the money. This is the irony of the whole thing. The FYF fund is like a nuclear deterrent. Having it means you probably won't have to launch the missiles. When you have the money to leave, your behavior changes in subtle ways that actually make you more valuable and more respected. Think about the employee who is terrified of being fired. They are anxious, they hide mistakes, they don't take risks, they don't innovate because innovation carries a risk of failure. They are playing not to lose. Now think about the employee who has a year of savings. They play to win. They tell the boss the hard truth that needs to be said. They pitch the crazy idea. They set boundaries on their time because they aren't afraid of the consequences. Paradoxically, this confidence often leads to promotions, better raises, and more respect. People respect strength. People respect boundaries. So you build the fund thinking you're going to use it to quit in a blaze of glory, flipping tables on your way out. But what actually happens is you start carrying yourself with a quiet dignity that changes how people treat you. You stop tolerating the nonsense, and often the nonsense stops coming your way because bullies, and bad bosses are just bullies, prefer easier targets. And if it doesn't stop, if the environment is truly toxic, then you actually do it. You walk. I remember reading a story about a guy. Let's call him Dave. Dave worked in a high-pressure sales job. His boss was a nightmare, constantly threatening to fire people if they missed quotas by an inch. Dave saved up his FYF. One day, the boss was screaming at the team, doing the whole, if you don't like it, there's the door routine. Everyone else was looking at their shoes, terrified. Dave looked up, smiled, and said, okay. He stood up, packed his bag, and left. The boss was stunned. He was bluffing to instill fear. He didn't actually want to lose his top salesman. He backpedaled, he offered more money, he apologized, but Dave was gone. He took 6 months off to travel, then found a job with a competitor who treated him like a human being. That moment, that okay, is what we are saving for. So how do we get there? If you're sitting there thinking, Karen, I have $42 in my checking account. This feels impossible. I get it. It feels huge, but you build a wall one brick at a time. 1, the tax yourself method. The only way to save is to treat savings like a bill. It's not whatever is left over at the end of the month because there is never anything left over. You have to tax yourself. Set up an automatic transfer for the day your paycheck hits. Even if it's $50, move it to a separate bank. I'm serious. Don't keep it at the same bank as your checking account. If you can see it when you log in to check your balance, you will spend it. Put it at a different bank, do not get a debit card for it, and forget it exists. 2. Attack the big three. Stop worrying about the $5 latte. Seriously, the latte isn't why you're broke. You're broke because of housing, transportation, and food. If you want to build an FYUF fast, you have to make a radical change in one of these three. Maybe you get a roommate. Maybe you drive a beater car for 2 years instead of leasing the new one. Maybe you stop ordering takeout entirely and become a meal prep god. It sucks. I know it sucks. But remember, it's temporary. You are living like a monk now so you can live like a king later. 3. Sell the clutter. Look around your house. How much money is sitting in your closet in the form of clothes you don't wear? How many old gadgets are in the drawer? Sell them. It's not just about the cash. It's about clearing the mental space. Turn your physical baggage into financial freedom. 4. The side hustle with a purpose. I hate hustle culture. I really do. I don't think we should all have to work 3 jobs to survive. But if you are desperate to build your FYUF, picking up a temporary gig, driving Uber on weekends, freelance writing, walking dogs can accelerate the process. But here is the key. Every single cent from the side hustle goes to the fund. You cannot use it to upgrade your lifestyle. It is 100% freedom money. I want to be real with you for a minute about what this feels like. At first, saving this money feels like deprivation. You're saying no to dinner with friends, you're wearing old shoes, you feel like you're missing out, it's lonely. But then you hit a milestone. Maybe it's $1,000, maybe it's 1 month of expenses, and something shifts. You check the account, and instead of feeling dread, you feel a tiny spark of pride. You think, that's mine. Nobody can take that from me. As the number grows, the deprivation feeling fades and it's replaced by a sense of security. You start sleeping better. You start walking differently. I call it the quiet confidence. You aren't flashing money, but you aren't vibrating with anxiety anymore. There's this metaphor I love. Imagine life is a video game. Most people are playing on hard mode with 1 life bar. If they get hit once, it's game over. They lose the house, the car, everything. The FUF gives you extra lives. It gives you a shield. It allows you to play the game more aggressively because you know you can take a hit and keep standing. And honestly, watching that number go up becomes addictive. You start to realize that buying freedom feels better than buying stuff. You walk through a mall and see all the clothes and gadgets and you think, I could buy that, but I'd rather buy another week of freedom. I want to circle back to the moment you might actually use this fund. It might not be a dramatic I quit moment. Maybe you use it to take a sabbatical. Maybe you use it to start your own business. Maybe you use it to leave a bad marriage. I received an email a few months ago from a viewer who had been watching my channel. She was in a relationship that was, let's say, controlling. Her partner controlled the finances. She felt stuck. She started siphoning off $20 here, $50 there into a secret account. It took her 2 years, 2 years of small, quiet rebellion. But she built her fund. She got enough for a deposit on an apartment and 2 months of rent. She told me that the day she moved out was the scariest day of her life. But when she turned the key in the lock of her own empty, tiny apartment, she sat on the floor and cried, not of sadness, out of relief. She bought her life back. That is what we are talking about here. We aren't talking about compound interest charts or investment strategies. We are talking about the price of your dignity. So here is where I leave you. I know the world is expensive. I know wages are stagnant. I know the system is rigged in a lot of ways. It is very easy to look at all of that and say, what's the point? I'll never get ahead. But cynicism is just another form of surrender. Cynicism keeps you broke. You have to get angry, not angry at the world in a way that makes you bitter, but angry in a way that makes you focused. You have to decide that you are done being vulnerable. You are done being a yes person because you can't afford to say no. Start small. Start today. Open the account, transfer $5. Sell that old jacket on eBay. Do whatever you have to do to get that first brick in the wall. Because the goal isn't to be the richest person in the graveyard. The goal is to wake up on a Tuesday, roll over and hear the alarm go off and realize that you don't have to go in. You are choosing to go in. And if that choice stops serving you, you have the power to change it. That feeling, is that chest tightness disappearing? That is worth more than any luxury car you will ever drive. Money is a tool. If you don't control it, it controls you. So take the wheel, build your fund, buy your freedom. Thanks for letting me ramble. Now go check your bank account and make a plan. You've got this. Once again, I'm Karen. See you in the next one.